This is Illuminate, the podcast about men with good hearts, open minds, and a desire to make the world better. Welcome to Illuminate. I'm your host, Chris Tidrick, and I'm here with Dr. Mel Fenner. Mel is a proud HBCU leader, technologist, and community-minded father who believes in building systems and people that thrive. From the campus to the boardroom, his work centers on equity, service, and intentional growth. Whether mentoring students or modernizing infrastructure, Mel leads with heart and a deep commitment to legacy and impact. Welcome to the show, Mel.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. So what I normally start these episodes with is diving right into your motivation. So what's your why? Where do you find purpose and what drives you?
Lately that purpose has really been just watching others grow. I've got kids of my own, so watching them grow, and as you mentioned in the intro, my staff, I've got a much younger team that I lead, and so really why I wake up every day, sometimes earlier than what I should, to really kind of get to work and all that is because I'm seeing that opportunity that, as I'm providing others and they're kind of latching on to that and, developing themselves and developing their skills. And I don't know, it's just something about giving back and kind of pouring into other people because I had the same treatment, several years ago, but being able to give that back, it really, it gets me going in the morning.
That's a really good reason to get going in the morning for sure.
It is. Yeah. It's fun.
So tell me about your journey. Start however far back you want to go. But I'd love to kind of hear your story about, where you came from and where you've gotten to today.
Yeah, for sure. So, I have humble beginnings, born and raised in South Mississippi. And I don't know, I've had a lot of really good opportunities to use my skills and knowledge over the years, even being from South Mississippi. And I'll talk about that a little bit. Sometimes people say, oh, Mississippi, I've never been there before. Is it like what you see in the movies? Not really. I mean, some things are a little bit of a challenge still, but, it's not really what you see in the movies. But, I got started in my career really early. And like I said, just had some really good opportunities to use my skills, throughout my journey. And people probably don't know, but I've worked in IT for 20 years now. And I've done everything in the technology field from, being the person that's answering the help desk calls and resetting passwords or, walking somebody through updating a spreadsheet all the way up to now being a deputy CIO and everything in between. But again, each of those steps along the way has really been, it's been fortuitous opportunities, I would say, that I still had to take advantage of and step up and actually, perform. Over the years, I don't know, there's been a lot of change, a lot of growth, a lot of risk taking, I would say, along the way. So
tell me about some of those because, how do you get from Mississippi to being an IT professional? What are some of the big steps in that process?
Well, thankfully, my parents were like, whatever we can provide you, we will. And so, I was the kid that somehow made it to a summer camp, science technology camp. And then at the end of the day, be out in the streets playing and all that, with my friends. And so I had a lot of those opportunities to kind of learn and develop. Really, like I said, it was just opportunities that had been provided. And I'm trying to think, it's been an interesting journey. I'm kind of blanking on maybe some of those highlights.
Yeah. So how did you end up at University of Illinois? Because that's where we first met. You used to work at university. So how did you get there?
How did that happen? Right. Well, so I mentioned the risk taking, right? I worked at a university in Mississippi, worked at a university in Florida, worked at a university in North Carolina. And so each of those times it was kind of like, wow, do I really want to move to a whole different state? I've got to create a whole new circle of friends. I've got to learn new acquaintances. I've got to learn new organizations and all of that. And I've just taken those risks, and so, getting to University of Illinois, being able to work with colleagues like yourself, was an amazing journey, but it was a gamble, right? Because, I was leaving a good job in the University of North Carolina system at Winston-Salem State University. And I thought, wow, University of Illinois sounds pretty cool. It's the behemoth in the state of Illinois. Why not? And, I kind of had to go into it eyes wide open and just willing to kind of accept challenges. But, the funny thing that always happens every time I go somewhere is I kind of go there with a scope of kind of what I'm supposed to be doing. And somehow I managed to like find my way around the bigger picture of things, and kind of get involved in things that are maybe weren't necessarily the initial reason for me being there. And I don't know, I stay curious.
Yeah, that's a good thing to be. It opens up opportunity for you, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. When you're willing to ask questions and know that hey, if you ask this difficult question, you may be tasked with finding the difficult answer, right? Some
Yeah.
people kind of shy away from that, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to bring that up or volunteer to do this thing or that thing because it's going to be more work. And
Yeah.
I've always embraced it.
Yeah. So I know that after your time at University of Illinois, you took a break from higher ed for a while and did something. Was that another risk taking?
There was another risk taking. So yeah, I left University of Illinois to work on my own businesses because I thought, at that time, hey, I've been working in IT for 18 or so years. Maybe it's time for something different.
Yeah.
Maybe I think looking back on it, it was kind of an early midlife crisis. If I'm being honest. So yeah, I left Illinois and started. Well, I had already started the business, but I didn't have any time to focus on it. Two businesses actually. One that was sort of AI driven. I created a AI text message based sort of wellness tool where people could sign up and they would get automated text messages and basically have an interactive conversation with AI via text messaging. So that was pretty fun. I mean, I learned a lot about creating a sort of a mini tech company and the challenges that come with that. Not the least of which is how do you continue to fund the whole thing unless you got a million subscribers.
Yeah.
So that kind of fizzled out a little bit. But also, I've always been passionate about real estate. And so that was one of the main things that I focused on when I took my little hiatus from IT was to focus on my real estate business, which in all honesty, it was going great and still is kind of in the background at this point. But the thing that I realized is that that's all good, but that's not my passion. Like, it's great to have properties that, you get mailbox money as the gurus call it, where, oh, I just got a deposit from my rental or whatever the case may be. But that didn't really, it didn't really speak to my senses, if you will, to my real heart. So, as things go, you take a risk, you're never too far away, but somehow I found my way right back into higher ed, leading an IT department.
Yeah. And where are you at now?
Lincoln University. So it's the first degree granting HBCU, which we're very proud of. A long history of HBCUs across the country. Lincoln it was one of the first, and a lot of very influential people that are alum of Lincoln University, and so it's a really rich history and rich tradition, which that and just the mission of HBCUs in general is really, again, some of the reasons why I get up in the morning to deal with, sometimes crazy situations where I'm like, oh my God, we never had to deal with this at Illinois, but it is what it is, right? I'm able to bring forth that knowledge that I gained from all those years at Illinois and other schools to really help them.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think you jumping around a lot and sort of taking these risks, you learn a lot about yourself in that
Yeah.
process. And one of the really central themes of this podcast is this idea of personal growth. And I kind of see in my own life and then in the stories that I've had the opportunity to hear through this podcast, that there's this idea of deconstruction of
Hmm.
there's something that maybe you held really close at one point in your life, and then you realize that doesn't serve me anymore. I've got to
Mm-hmm.
like deconstruct that, get rid of it, and
Yeah.
sort of rebuild something new. So, how has that been in your life?
For a while, I always had to, maybe not even had to, but I always kind of put on this persona, of like, I really know what I'm doing. I'm, maybe even more mature than what I appear to be, which is funny because just the other day I still got confused for a student.
Yeah.
There's a professor like, wait, which class did I teach you in? I'm like, you didn't teach me anything. I'm over the IT department.
Yeah.
I work in concert with you.
It's the curse of the baby face.
The curse of the baby face. I
Yeah.
tell them, good sleep, diet, and exercise will go a long way. But really, when I think about what I had to deconstruct, it was not being myself. Not being 100% authentic. When I think about my career path and just the environments that I've been in over the years, this is something that I probably didn't realize until about 3 or 4 years ago that I've really got to be myself, and whatever that looks like. I mean, again, I'm from South Mississippi. Sometimes I might say ain't, I might say I'm about to, right? I mean, I might use some Southern vernacular, but at the end of the day, I know I've got multiple degrees and certifications and all that. Whatever I need to say and how I need to say it, I can do that. But not having to put on a persona that's not me, has really been something that has something that I've discovered over the last few years. And a lot of times it feels good to be able to just show up and say, here I am.
This is me. This is me. Yeah.
Me, luckily today, or maybe not so luckily, I didn't have my bow tie on today because it's, kind of summertime and I'm dressing down a little bit. But, if I want to wear a bow tie with some, Jordan ones, I want to do that. Right.
Yeah.
And so I've had to be okay with that and know that I still know what I'm doing. Obviously, there are those that trust me to get things done. So why not do it in a comfortable way?
Do you feel like that the sort of expectation to not be yourself or the pressure to not be yourself, do you feel like that was self-imposed or like externally imposed or a combination of both?
Definitely a combination of both. Um, Probably self-imposed because that was some things right or wrong that I was taught as a kid that what, you've already got a couple of strikes against you. You're a young black male, right? And so therefore you have to show up 110% better than everybody else because people are already counting you out. So hearing that over and over again, rightly or wrongly, your parents grow up during an era, we grow up during an era, our kids grow up during an era, and so we just try to pass on the knowledge that we think is appropriate. So in some ways it was self-imposed because I just thought that I've got to do this way in order to be successful. And then in other cases, if I'm being candid, there are moments, have been, and maybe will continue to be moments where if I don't show up a certain way, then I could be disregarded. And it's funny because sometimes I test out the theory. I'll go on a flight. I'll take a flight with my usual collar shirt and blazer on, and I get on there, and the stewardess is like, "Oh, can I offer you a drink?" I'm not in first class. I get a free drink and things like that. And sometimes I'll go with the hoodie on and a baseball cap, and it's like, I'm not even actually there. And so again, that's why I say it's a little bit of both, and it's a harsh reality, but I don't know. I've learned to play the game, but in some situations, I'm like, I don't even feel like playing the game today.
Yeah. So what was that you said maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you were kind of had this realization that you don't need to do that anymore. Like, was there something that happened? Was there a moment that you're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm gonna be more free with myself here?
I don't know what the epiphany was, other than maybe just feeling a lot more comfortable in the environment. And I was still at University of Illinois,
Yeah.
during this time, and I think I just felt more relaxed about it because again, it's like I know what I know, right? I know how to perform my job at a high level. I know how to lead a team at a high level. I know how to train up staff that may not be as knowledgeable as me and things like that. So, why fake it? You know,
Yeah. You had the confidence and the
yeah,
foundation. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, at this point, people are going to listen. And so I don't know if it was a little bit of okay, I've proven myself now, and therefore I can pull back a little bit versus just being burnt out on being somebody else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So what are the personal development things you're currently working on?
Quite a few things actually. The top of the list is a closer relationship with God. I mean, I grew up in a Christian household, grew up in the Bible Belt, so it's like, that leads the way regardless. But I think sometimes we kind of get, and this is not, I'm not preaching, but I think everybody should believe in some sort of guiding light, some guiding principle, right? And sometimes I think we try to kind of pull things ourselves, right? We try to navigate things on our own without a whole lot of direction. And so, I've just come to realization that I'm not in control. And mainly I come to that realization because there's just been situations that occur and it's like, oh wow, okay, I never could have orchestrated that, on my own. Um, the university that I'm at now, the president was the provost at Winston-Salem State when I was there, right? So it's those type connections where I show up and it's like, wait, we worked together before, and if I had not taken that risk, if I had not thought about taking that risk to go to Carolina so many years ago, where would I be today, right? Would I still be trying to struggle with my own businesses and things like that versus having an opportunity at another school? And so it's like, things like that. I could not have put that together on my own. There has to be a higher authority that's kind of pulling the strings a little bit,
Yeah.
And so, I'm like, I want to press into that. I want to know more because now that I see kind of how things operate, I want to just make sure that I'm not creating unnecessary friction because life is difficult. I mean, why
Yes,
make
it
it
is.
harder than what it has to be?
Yeah.
As me and my friends like to say, life is lifing.
Yeah.
There's always these situations that happen, and it's like if I can avoid some of that by just being a little bit more attuned, then I will. And what has kind of pushed me in that direction is I started reading more. So I don't know if you heard of this, but I did a 75 hard challenge.
I've not heard of that. What is that?
Okay, so 75 hard is not really a fitness challenge, but it's a 75-day challenge where every day you're supposed to work out twice a day. One workout has to be outdoors. You have to read at least 10 pages of a book. Cannot be an audiobook. You got to actually pick up a book and look at letters on paper, right? You have to stick to a diet, no alcohol, no cheat meals. And you have to take a progress picture of yourself. So you got to do that for 75 days straight. And if you miss a single day, you're done. You can start over if you want to, or just say good effort. So I did that last year and I got to day 43. And man, I had the worst migraine headache of my life. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this extra workout in. So I had to kind of put it to the side. But the one thing that I took from that and carried with me was that those 10 pages a day, right, of reading an actual book. And so I started reading books like Think and Grow Rich, the classics, right?
Yeah.
Then I was like, wow, they were really talking about something back in the 1900s. So I went back even further and started reading books from like 1890s and 1904, 1911, things like Your Word is Your Wand, what's another one? Your Invisible Power. These were books from, like I said, early 1900s, and they're about like basically connecting to a higher source. Now they reference God in there, but they kind of keep it loose as well. And so, long story short, or maybe not so short, the reason I got into a lot of those books and even started pressing more into my relationship with God, because after doing that challenge and reading 10 pages a day and continuing to do that even today, it's just opened me up to so many other books that talk about how connected we can be if we want to be, right? Otherwise, we could just be kind of out here wandering around, pissed off at the world, mad at everybody that looks at us wrong, as opposed to taking each moment as an opportunity of what can I learn from this moment right now? What is it that I'm supposed to attain from it or provide, right? Everything is not about what can you get. Sometimes it's what can you give. So, those are some of the things that personal development, also health and fitness. I mean, I really leaned into working out 6 days a week, 5 to 6 days a week. Just really trying to get on some longevity type stuff. I mean, when it's my time, it's my time. But while I'm here, I'm going to try to keep this thing as healthy as I can be.
You're working your mind and body, so that's a really good thing. And I can relate to the kind of getting closer to God, getting closer to I'm still a little uncomfortable like using the term God. Like I was away from organized religion for like 30 years and like there's some past trauma there that but I've recently like started going back to like a really progressive church and, started to think about this idea of God. But I think the sort of common thing that I found in what you were describing is like, there's got to be a connection to something.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think we don't feel whole until we feel a connection to something in this world. Right. And, whether that's God, whether that's other people, whether that's our family, whether that's nature, like that connection is really important for us as humans, I think.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. It really is. And, sometimes we yearn for that human connection, but it's like, that's one thing, and humans can provide connection up to a certain degree, but you got to know, based on just how big the universe is, we're not here just to be some little like speck on a planet, right? I mean, I don't know. It seems obvious now just because I'm so deep into it, but that's just kind of where I am.
It feels less than accidental.
Right.
Yeah. So speaking about connection, community is another theme that I like to talk about with my guests. And so like, who do you, or what do you rely on for support in your life? And, you opened up talking about how you love being supportive and helping people grow and watching them grow. But like, what do you do for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I heavily rely on my sister for one. I mean, she's like my best friend, even though she's 5 years older than me. Now that we're both adults, and we got our own life challenges or whatever, it doesn't feel like she's much older than me. And sometimes people think we're twins, but she's my real support arm because I know I can keep it real with her, and she can do the same. But outside of her, I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and so whole backstory there. But being a part of that fraternity has really created connections for me, or helped create those connections, where essentially anywhere I go, I'm likely to run into one of my frat brothers. And there's a natural bond, there's a natural sort of shared interest that we have with, help building the community and, guiding younger men in the right direction. That's like the goals of some of the goals of the fraternity in general. But, those that I pledged the fraternity with, they're still like blood brothers to me. I was just talking to one of them a couple of days ago. We were just kind of catching up on life, and it's, I don't know, it's just one of those things where I'm again thinking about crazy moments in life. There was a moment where I thought maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but then as life has gone on, all these years later of being in the fraternity, I'm so thankful that I did, because I have that connection to those individuals that like we're family.
Yeah. So let's dive into that a little bit, because I'm really fascinated by the idea of male friendship and what it means to like the men that I talk to on this podcast. So for you, like, what's the core of male friendship? What's its purpose in your life?
I think having like a sounding board, having like-minded individuals that I know are positive thinkers that I can go to for help, that I can listen to and provide, whatever nuggets of wisdom I have back to them. But, I think the challenge, and not to say like, oh, I can't talk to a female or a woman about, man issues. It's just women have their own challenges, and good or bad, right? And sometimes it's like, why would I put those issues on them to help me solve, as opposed to using my male friends that, maybe going through a similar situation, being a dad, being a husband, or not, trying to find their way through relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
And whatever advice I can provide them that, helps them if at all possible. Um, it's just, again, it's just having a group of gentlemen that I can kind of confide in and know that they won't judge, because we're simple creatures. People say that, but then the older I get, the more I realize, like, yeah, we are kind of simple. Like, I don't know, it's like some things aren't that complicated. And having a conversation with another guy, it's like, I know I won't be judged. I know they'll listen. They may not provide the best advice, but I know that their heart is in it.
Yeah.
So that really kind of centers on that friendship for me.
What is vulnerability and accountability look like in those relationships for you?
I think it looks like knowing when that other person is not being straight up about something, and it's like, wait a minute, back up. Let's be for real. Like, you're telling me this situation is happening, but those details aren't really adding up. And it's like, okay, all right, you got me. Like, let me keep it real with you. Here's what's going on. And being able to just be yourself and be vulnerable about a given situation. Again, knowing that there's no judgment there. But that doesn't happen overnight. Even if it's, going back to being in a fraternity, even if it's somebody that I just met, I may not completely open up to them, but I know that I'm a little bit safer with them to be completely honest. But throughout time and experiences, vulnerability just becomes a little bit natural. There's one thing that me and a few of my frat brothers do, which is we have like an accountability group where we will kind of set goals and expectations for the week and then check in with each other throughout the week. And if somebody's slipping on one of those goals, it's like a real heart-to-heart conversation. It's like, did you not get this done because Cinco de Mayo was yesterday and you decided to, go and do whatever? Or is it because you just got too many things kind of on your plate, and if that's the case, what can I do to help you with some of those things that are on your plate? Is there, can I make a phone call or two for you, but that comes with being intentional. And I think that's another concept that maybe a lot of people have to kind of grow to realize, is just being intentional and being intentionally vulnerable, being intentionally present, holding yourself accountable intentionally, holding other people accountable intentionally, and really making an effort,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's switch into our lightning round.
Okay.
So I've got 11 questions, kind of quick answers on these. I might dive into a couple with you if something sort of piques my interest.
All right.
But number one, what are your top 3 values?
Having a North Star, I talked about, God or whatever your universal power is, honesty and work ethic. Don't be lazy. I don't know.
Those are 3 great ones. So who is one role model you've had in your life?
I'm gonna have to say my dad. And statistically speaking, not every young Black man can say that, my dad was my role model, just based off the numbers. I know it's not everybody's story, but I would say my dad has been my biggest role model.
How was he a role model to you?
Just the way he cared for us growing up. I mean, I still reminisce about his job was like 30, 45 minutes away. He would wake up early to cook breakfast and like leave it wrapped up on the kitchen counter where all we had to do was rewarm it, right? Religiously every day. And I'm thinking, half the time I get up now, I don't even want to make myself breakfast, let alone my kids, and have it sitting there waiting for them, right? So it was just those small things where it was like, you got to really care to already have to wake up early to go to work, but then take the time to prepare food so that your kids know that they have something to eat. It would be something as simple as like a bowl of grits, but still,
that was his way of being there for breakfast, because he knew he couldn't. He couldn't be there physically, so that was his way of being there for you.
Yeah. Exactly. He's like, every spoonful you take, you're gonna be thinking about me.
There's all this like chatter online about the masculinity and men being providers, and I think they kind of get it all wrong. It's simple things like that.
Yeah.
Right. It's simple things like that.
It is. And like I said, even though that was decades ago, that's still, I still think about that on a daily basis, that and many other experiences, but he definitely showed me the way.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
who do you hope you're a role model for?
Definitely my younger staff and my kids, of course. I think the kids part should be natural. I don't. I suppose there are people that have kids and don't necessarily want to lead them in the right direction, but I think that's a no-brainer in my opinion. But just as importantly is the staff that I have, the student employees that I have. Um, I really like to see them learn and grow, and so I always hope that I'm imparting on them wisdom, and I see it. There are times that I hear them regurgitating things that they've heard me say, and so I really just hope that I can continue to pour into them like that.
What do you want them to see in you? Like when they think of Mel Fenner, like what do you want them to think of?
Um, Professional, but cool at the same time. I
All
mean,
right.
cool, I'll say, I don't, whatever word they want to use these days, riz, drip, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
my kids say I don't have any riz. I tell them I invented riz. I don't know what you're talking about. But, I want them to be able to see that there's a balance, right? When it's time to work, it's time to work. Let's get some things done. And when it's time to play, hey, let's come in my office and hang out. No big deal. We got everything done on our task list
Yeah.
for today. I want them to be able to see that balance and that it's okay to have that balance.
Okay. What's one way you make the world a better place for others?
Well, what I try to do to help make the world a better place is solve problems for people, before or solve an issue before it becomes a problem is about the best way I can put it. So, I'll kind of equate it to, I'll be the person in the rain at the corner trying to clear a storm drain to let the water go down before the neighborhood floods, like kind of making that sacrifice. And like, it's not a big issue now, but hey, if it keeps raining for another hour, your front yard's going to be flooded, so
Yeah.
I really I like to take action on those opportunities when I see them, because again, going back to what I said earlier about, kind of being connected and being here for a reason, if I see something as an issue, there's a chance that I saw it because maybe I have the solution in me to go and help it, right? Why else was I here to see it? I could have been asleep during the thunderstorm and didn't even know that it was, about to flood the neighborhood. But instead, I peeked out the window and saw it. It's like, if I saw it, I got to take action, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cool. So what's the hardest thing about being you in today's world?
Kind of what I said earlier about, and I never like to make things racially, tied, but the reality is I am who I am. I've lived through the experiences that I've lived through. I can't ignore them. I can't delete them from my mind. So really being I'll say a younger looking black male, is probably one of the hardest parts in today's world for all the examples I gave you earlier, right? It's like the treatment, in different situations. I've grown to just kind of sweep things under the rug for right or wrong. I know there are some people that are like, oh, you can't do that. You got to stand up for whatever. But, at the end of the day, things are working out in a positive direction. But it doesn't make it easy,
Right.
so.
Yeah, you're not alone. You are my fourth black guest on this show, and
Okay.
I've gotten a version of that answer from every single one of them.
Interesting.
It's a fact of life.
Wow.
And like
Yeah.
it's like that hits me hard. Like
Sure.
I feel like terrible that that's the answer that you all give, but it's your lived experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I always lead off with saying, I don't want to make it the topic, right? I mean, I try not to harp on it too much, but it is what it is. Like I can't ignore it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what's your favorite emotion?
Happily chilled. If that's an emotion.
Chilled. All right.
Yeah. So my oldest daughter, her friends always say, "Oh, you got the best dad because he's always just so chill and happy." And I'm like, well, I guess that happens most of the time, but that's how I like to be. I get excited about things and expressive, but I like to just kind of be chilled and happy about life.
Yeah. Very cool. What's your least favorite emotion?
Probably anxiousness, because it literally gives me a headache when I get too anxious about something. And as soon as it kicks in, I take my aspirin, take a deep breath and say, all right, just relax. Like, what are you stressing about? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But I don't like when that happens. I don't like when that emotion starts to develop. So I try to check it pretty quick.
Yeah. What brings you the most joy in life?
Um, Probably talking to my youngest daughter. She's just as curious about the world as I am, and so to have a 5, almost 6 year old have an intelligent conversation about, I don't know, like why ducks can float. I don't know. It's just the most abstract stuff. It warms my heart, and she legitimately wants to talk. Like, she will call me and say, "Oh, I just wanted to call and talk," and it's like, wow, bless your heart, little girl.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing to see how their brains work? And
Oh
just to
man,
sort of just
it is.
witness that. And like, I don't know
Yes.
that we remember it like in our own lives, but when we witness it in small children, it's like, that's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
because the world is unfolding in front of them
Right.
and we
Right.
get to see it through their eyes and in a
Yeah.
way that we didn't appreciate when we were doing the same thing.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think I had the same appreciation. Again, I've always been a naturally curious person. Ask a lot of questions. Sometimes, that would get misinterpreted because of how many questions I'll ask sometimes. But yeah, she's the same way. She gets it honest. So that's why I just, really warms my heart.
Yeah. That's beautiful. What makes you the most proud of yourself?
Making it out, making it out of Mississippi. Again, not that Mississippi should just be, taken off the map. A lot of great people make it out of Mississippi, but again, if you look at the stats, it's a slower economy. Higher crime, higher drugs, higher diseases, and all of that. And by the grace of God, I made it out, and could seem to keep moving further away from it too, geographically.
So I
Not
want
on
to,
purpose.
yeah. So I want to maybe push back a little bit because I think you're being a little bit too humble there. Like in what I know about you and what you've shared today,
Hmm.
like there was a lot of intention in that. There were a lot of choices
Yeah.
that you made. It sounds like there were a lot of choices your parents made,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
that enabled you to do that, right? The grace of God is in there,
Absolutely.
but the grace of God doesn't like people who just let life go by accident,
Well, that's
right?
true,
Yeah,
right? I mean, faith without works is dead, right? And
yeah,
so I could have the faith of, oh, hopefully I get a great opportunity, but if I don't do anything to
yeah,
put myself in position for that opportunity, it won't arrive. So yeah, I could have been offered a job in North Carolina and said, nah, I think I'll stay here, right?
yeah,
Could have been offered a job in Florida and said, nah, I think I'll just stick around here,
yeah,
Getting to Carolina, could have said, oh, University of Illinois, I'll pass. The opportunities presented themselves, and yes, to your point, I had to take that action. So okay, yeah, maybe being a little too humble to say, oh, I
yeah,
just thankfully I
yeah,
got out. But those were tough decisions.
yeah,
It was like, leave your family and go where you don't have any relatives
no.
and just start over. All right.
That makes it even greater, right? Because there was a risk involved in it. So
Huge
I just
risk.
I wanted to like brag on you a little bit there. So
No, I appreciate it. That's a
yeah,
good perspective.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So where can you feel the most yourself?
Around my family, definitely. I mean, for obvious reasons, or maybe not. I don't know if everybody has that luxury of just kind of, being themselves around their family. But now also at work. I mean, again, going back to that epiphany a few years ago of
Yeah,
I'm just going to be authentic. Like it or love it, I'm here. I'm even more so comfortable with that now. Maybe being
yeah,
at an HBCU has a little bit to do with that, but keeping it 100, as they say, or keeping it real at this point, it's okay. We're still doing major projects, still
yeah.
navigating life. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I hadn't really thought of that in that framing, but like when you get to that place where you can be your authentic self, you can feel the most yourself everywhere,
Anywhere, yeah,
anywhere.
because
Yeah,
you come to that realization that, again, I'm here for a purpose, and there may be those that don't necessarily like me or like what I have to say, but I'm still here in this situation, in this environment, in this room for a reason. Therefore, I'm going to present the best way that I know how, and we're going to go from there. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. So to wrap up the conversation today, one last question.
Hmm.
What's the one thing that you hope people take away from this conversation?
I feel like we've said it a lot, but really, being yourself and taking taking a calculated risk on your decisions throughout life, right? Taking those opportunities that you're provided, and really, sort of grab the bull by the horns, as they say, and run with it, right? I mean, I'm not talking about doing anything, malicious or dangerous, like, oh, there's a bag of money, I should just go grab it, right? Let's think, right? Let's use your head. But, when you're presented that opportunity, and I'll say this real quick, I talked to a gentleman that's in his late 60s, had recently retired, and I told him how I had moved around a lot, and he said, man, that's one thing I wish I did, was take other opportunities that were presented to me, as opposed to being at this one company for like 40 years. And I told him, I mean, obviously you turned out okay, right? You're retired, you're happy, successful. But it is a different feeling when you say, hey, this opportunity looks like it's going to be good for my family, good for me. And you go for it, just knowing that even if it doesn't work out perfectly, there's still going to be something to learn from it. And you're going to be able to take that with you to your next step. Maybe take it with you back to where you came from,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Mel. This has been a great conversation. Really, I think viewers and listeners are going to really enjoy it. I always end these conversations with a little bit of support advice. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's an entreaty, I guess, is keep up the hard work.
All right, I will.
So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
All right, I appreciate it.
Okay. You can learn more about Illuminate at illuminate.substack.com. We are also streaming on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you at the next episode of Illuminate.